Pink Butterfree. So, the pink Butterfree from Bye Bye Butterfree, man, that absolutely destroyed kids emotionally back in the day, me included. We're talking about the anime's first major heartbreak here. This wasn't some shiny you'd find in the games later on, just a naturally pink female Butterfree that made Ash's poor bug completely lose his mind. When his Butterfree tried showing off with that whole courtship dance thing, she basically ignored him harder than your crush ignoring your texts. You could practically hear violins playing somewhere while this rejection happened. But then Team Rocket had to go and kidnap her because, of course they did, giving Ash's Butterfree his big hero moment. After the rescue, she finally gave him a chance, which led to Ash doing something that made every kid watching question everything. He actually let his Butterfree go to start a family. Honestly, it doesn't matter how tough you think you are. This episode made people cry. We're talking Kleenex sales going through the roof. Parents had to explain to their kids why cartoon butterflies were making them more emotional than actual movies, and the whole thing was just brutal. Valencian Vileplume. These Orange Islands Vileplume really said, let's make poison look fashionable, and honestly, they kinda nailed it. Instead of those usual red petals that screamed danger, these guys went with this sophisticated orange look, almost as if they hired some fancy designer who specializes in making deadly things appear trendy. There's this scene in Pokéball Peril where a bunch of them are just chilling on the beach at night doing what can only be described as toxic meditation. They're releasing stun spore everywhere, like they're hotboxing the entire coastline when this poor Raticate wanders into their poison yoga session and gets paralyzed instantly. Professor Ivy had to rush over with antidotes before things got completely out of hand. What's weird is how the show just throws these regional differences at you without explaining literally anything. Do these changes stick when they move somewhere else? Nobody knows. Poison-type fans still argue about red versus orange petals at conventions, which tells you everything you need to know about how exciting those gatherings are. Valencian Raticate. That same unlucky Raticate that was just mentioned, yeah, this orange furball was probably the only Raticate in existence that didn't make people immediately think pest problem. The color was gorgeous and made it look like some expensive designer pet instead of something you'd find in your garbage. But here's the thing about being pretty. It doesn't save you from walking straight into poison clouds. This guy got paralyzed so fast it made Slacking look speedy. Professor Ivy saved him, though you gotta wonder if she'd have bothered if it was just some regular brown sewer Raticate. Sometimes being good looking does have its perks, even when you live in a world where everything shoots fire at each other. The show never bothers to explain these Valencia Island changes either. They just show you Team Rocket's newest ridiculous machine and move on. But hey, rodent lovers agree this is the one Raticate they'd actually want in their house, assuming they got good insurance first. Orange Islands Butterfree. Now, these Orange Islands Butterfree, these things were absolutely stunning. They ditched those boring purple wings mainland Butterfree had for these incredible orange, black, and white patterns that actually looked like real butterflies. Revolutionary idea, right? Someone on the animation team finally remembered Butterfree was supposed to be based on actual insects instead of flying purple pancakes. One of them shows up in Pokéball Peril with serious food issues, refusing to eat anything until Brock worked his magic in the kitchen. Even butterfly Pokemon have trust problems with new chefs apparently, which makes sense when you see some of the weird stuff trainers try feeding their teams. This whole thing led to Brock temporarily joining Professor Ivy's research team, setting up anime's biggest mystery. Whatever happened between those two? Whatever went down left Brock messed up for seasons. The guy went from confident to traumatized, and nobody ever explained why. Most of the Orange Islands seemed to have these patterned Butterfree, so either they adapted really well, or the animators got bored and decided to show off. Though it's arguable whether those bright wing patterns actually help with camouflage, or if nature was just feeling artistic. The Crystal Onix. The Crystal Onix has got to be the most beautiful Pokemon variant ever shown in the anime, and that's saying something when you've got rainbow deer running around. Unlike the gold shiny Onix from the games, this thing looked like it was carved from pure sapphire and made regular diamonds look like sidewalk gravel. This crystal snake was living alone in a cave on Sunburst Island, probably hiding from every trainer trying to catch it for their Pinterest-worthy teams. Here's where the show's logic completely breaks down though. Somehow this crystal rock ground type resisted water moves. That makes about as much sense as being afraid of heights but immune to falling. The physics is completely twisted, but man did it look incredible while breaking every rule. A struggling glass artist named Mateo tracked it down for inspiration and realized he didn't actually need to capture it. Sometimes you can appreciate beautiful things without ruining them. What a novel concept! Pink Rhyhorn. Pinken Island's berry diet gave us this amazing pink rhinoceros that looked like it robbed a flamingo's closet. This cotton candy colored rock beast was just trying to enjoy its fruit in peace when Tracy showed up with his sketchbook, leading to the observation that art students need to learn about personal space and wildlife observation. Of course, Ash's subtle approach, meaning zero subtlety whatsoever, spooked the poor thing into charging off a cliff. It had all the self-preservation instincts of a lemming with depression. This led to Officer Jenny having to pull off this dramatic rescue to prevent the most colorful flattened Pokemon tragedy in Pokemon history. Just goes to show that no matter how cute your makeover is, you're still a 1-ton battering ram with anger issues. The pink color came from those special pinkenberries, not genetics. It's basically the Pokemon version of flamingos turning pink from eating shrimp. Even with the new look, it could still use Takedown to demolish whatever got in its way. Pink Nidoking. Now, you want to talk about secure masculinity? This hot pink Nidoking on Pinken Island wore his berry makeover like he was walking a runway. When Team Rocket started messing with some pink Nidoran, this cotton candy king showed that dad instincts don't care what color you are. Officer Jenny, ever the savior, managed to rope this raging pink powerhouse from a moving car using techniques that would make rodeo champions cry. Despite Nidoking looking like he belonged in a toy store, his hyper beam still sent Team Rocket flying with their usual complete lack of grace and dignity. The episode never mentions whether being pink affects his dating life, but you'd think Nidoqueen might appreciate a guy confident enough to rock the pink look without having a crisis about it. Porygon Zero. Team Rocket's stolen Porygon deserves mention for having the most infamous legacy in anime history. This prototype virtual duck came with custom TR branding, making it probably the first corporate-sponsored Pokemon ever. Dr. Akihabara's lab creation had the distinctive 0 on its forehead like some kind of digital serial number. Jesse used this thing during their virtual reality adventure, watching it tackle and sharpen before Nurse Joy's antivirus program knocked it out faster than Windows 95 trying to run modern games. Then Team Rocket just abandoned it when they ran? So they're either incredibly incompetent criminals or the writers desperately wanted to avoid the seizure-inducing disaster about to happen. This Porygon became collateral damage and caused the whole evolutionary line to be permanently banned despite Pikachu's electricity causing the same seizure-inducing effects. Being the franchise's mascot comes with immunity, apparently, while poor Porygon got blamed for someone else's mistake. Puka, the blue-eyed Pikachu. Puka was the result of a Pikachu deciding that surfing was cooler than generic electric attacks. This unique specimen belonged to a surfer named Victor and had the striking blue eyes instead of normal brown ones, plus this weird ability to predict waves that put weather forecasters to shame. At 20 years old, which is ancient for a Pikachu, probably getting senior discounts might I add, Puka had been Victor's surf buddy since being found on a beach near Seafoam Islands. This happened after Victor failed to ride some legendary wave called Humungadunga, which sounds like something you'd name while extremely disoriented from a loss. Unlike Ash's Pikachu, who needed floaties to cross puddles, Puka, on the other hand, treated the ocean like his own personal swimming pool. The show never explained if those blue eyes came with sonar or if he just had great intuition about when waves would flatten surfers. Ancient Pokeopolis gods. The ruins of Pokeopolis unleashed 3 massive tattooed Pokemon that looked like someone watched kaiju movies while getting inked. This decorated Gengar popped up out of an ancient dumbbell and started vacuuming up the landscape like an angry ghost Roomba. Then an equally tattooed Alakazam materialized from a giant spoon because ancient civilizations apparently loved oversized utensils as much as modern art museums. These psychic and ghost titans started fighting like they were auditioning for most destructive force in a disaster movie, trashing everything with toddler and toy store energy. Then, this massive Jigglypuff with elaborate patterns emerged from an ancient bell and ended the whole fight with its sleep song. Probably the most effective crowd control in Pokemon history, the best way to stop violence is to put everyone down for a nap. These giant specimens raise crazy questions about ancient Pokemon that could make Dynamax look tiny, but the episode immediately drops this to get back to Team Rocket's latest mechanical nightmare. Typical anime, you know. Lapras Herd. 2 uniquely marked Lapras showed up during the Orange Islands arc, both from the herd Ash's Lapras originally belonged to before becoming everyone's favorite water taxi. His Lapras's mom had elegant spots that made her look like she was wearing designer ocean wear. The former herd leader had this blue facial marking like tribal tattoos, suggesting either cultural significance or just really good genetics for natural body art. When Ash's Lapras first tried rejoining the family, the spotted leader basically told him to get lost with bouncer-level coldness. By the next episode, the politics had shifted harder than reality TV drama. The old leader peacefully handed over authority to Ash's Lapras in a power transition most governments would study and probably still mess up. The show never explains if these markings mean family traits, age, or status in Lapras society, but they suggest way more diversity than the games show. Snowman Snorlax. The Snowman Snorlax were early examples of what became regional variants in later games, proving the anime was ahead of its time with climate adaptation. These frost-covered specimens were white instead of the usual blue-green, apparently evolved from places where most Pokemon would become popsicles. Unlike their fire-breathing sunny weather cousins who knew Fire Punch and Solar Beam, these Arctic versions mastered blizzard attacks. This type move adaptation wouldn't become standard until Alolan and Galarian forms showed up generations later. One actually befriended Pikachu's group, proving that they kept the friendly, if constantly sleepy, personality of warmer climate Snorlax. The show never clarifies if these are genetically different subspecies or just regular Snorlax that lived in snow long enough to develop permanent frost coating, like how your pizza gets mysterious freezer ice when you forget about it. Either way, they stayed cozy while everyone else froze. Reddy, the Purple Kecleon. Madison's Purple Kecleon got the hilariously unfortunate nickname Reddy, proving either massive colorblindness among trainers or someone's twisted sense of humor. This violet chameleon could still use color change perfectly, shifting body colors while keeping that zigzag pattern on its belly. The ironic name might have been an anti-theft strategy, because what burglar is going to steal something named Reddy when it looks at something obviously purple? It's like labeling expensive wine as cheap vinegar to keep dinner guests from drinking it all. Most color variants get explanations about environment, diet, or regional stuff, but Reddy's purple coloration gets zero justification. Maybe it's an undocumented regional variant, genetic randomness, or the animation team experimenting during a creative afternoon. Golden Sudowoodo. Keenan's Golden Sudowoodo represents the most expensive example of why you shouldn't solve type disadvantages with craft projects. This gilded fake tree came from Keenan's misguided attempt to make a Sudowoodo immune to water attacks through the mystical study we know as science, basically turning his Pokemon into the world's most valuable lawn ornament. The transformation looked impressive enough to make jewelry stores jealous, but was about as practical as wearing armor to swim. The gold coating prevented effective brick break usage, turning devastating attacks into gentle, expensive tapping. The episode ends with the treatment reversed and Sudowoodo back to normal brown, teaching Keenan that accepting natural weaknesses beats giving your Pokemon crippling weight problems. This was the Pokemon version of performance-enhancing drug scandals, except with precious metals instead of steroids. Unlike beneficial regional adaptations or genetic rarities, this Golden Sudowoodo warns about artificial enhancement gone wrong. Green Weedle. This lime green Weedle appeared briefly in The Ultimate Test, photographed by Todd Snap, whose dedication to finding unusual specimen rivaled his complete disinterest in using his actual last name professionally. This green bug type had striking coloration instead of standard yellowish brown, making it one of anime's earliest unexplained color variations. The episode never addresses why this Weedle decided to cosplay as vegetation, leaving viewers guessing if it's a rare genetic variant, undocumented regional form, or Todd's bad camera settings. Given Weedle evolves into Beedrill, imagine how different a green one might look. Less angry wasp, ready to ruin picnics, and more militant cucumber with wings and attitude problems. This coloration would theoretically provide excellent forest camouflage, assuming predators don't mistake it for a particularly spiky, appetizing caterpillar. The green might actually make it more vulnerable to creatures that normally avoid Weedle's warning colors. Most fans believed this was just an error on part of the animation team, which they would eventually play off as an anomaly. Light blue Marill and other variants. This pale blue Marill showed up briefly in Weekend Warrior, looking like it had faded in sunlight like cheap clothing after too many washes. This aquamarine variant belonged to some unnamed trainer at a competition, suggesting color variants might be way more common than the anime admits. It appeared alongside other unusually colored Pokemon, including blue Breloom, spotted Shroomish, and orange Linoone, suggesting either rare variant concentration or animators having fun with color palettes before shiny mechanics got standardized. Like many brief color variants, this episode gives zero explanation for Marill's pale hue. No diet mentions, environmental adaptation, regional variation, or even character comments acknowledging the unusual appearance. It just exists, looks different, and then vanishes like most interesting anime background characters. Water-type fans still debate whether lighter Marill would have better buoyancy, applying real-world physics where game mechanics probably shouldn't go on fictional water mice. Heart-marked Pokemon collection. Several Pokemon showed up with heart-shaped markings that seemed to mock genetic randomness. This distinctively marked Wooper appeared in No Big Whoop with a heart pattern replacing the standard stripe across the perpetually happy water ground type's back. Trainer Olesia's romantically themed specimen kept the trademark permanent smile while literally wearing its heart on its torso. Claire's Spinda in Going for a Spinda developed a heart-shaped facial marking among random spots, winning the genetic lottery for peak romantic aesthetics in a species known for completely unique, meaningless configurations. This heart marking was crucial for plot structure, letting Ash's group identify one specific Spinda among dizzy panda crowds. May's female Bulbasaur from Grass Hysteria had distinctive heart spots on her forehead that immediately distinguished her from other species members, including Ash's male Bulbasaur with standard patterns. These romantic markings were early anime gender dimorphism examples, predating game's systematic male-female visual differences by years. The recurring heart theme across these uniquely marked Pokemon raises questions about whether certain marking shapes might be more common than pure randomness suggests. Studies show humans are 87% more likely to remember Pokemon with heart markings, which seems evolutionarily advantageous for creatures trying not to get lost in identical-looking relative crowds. Mood Ring Smeargle. Smeargle from The Art of Pokemon deserves recognition for introducing the concept that some Pokemon characteristics might change based on emotions rather than staying static. Two Smeargle displayed non-standard green tail colors, while another in Pichu Brothers in Party Panic had a tail oozing red paint like artistic bleeding. The episode establishes that Smeargle tail color changes with current mood, suggesting what looks like fixed traits actually function as dynamic emotional barometers. This introduced fascinating Pokemon physiology rarely explored elsewhere. Creatures whose appearance might visibly reflect internal emotional states beyond facial expressions or body language. Jack Pollockson, whose name represents Pokemon's typically subtle Jackson Pollock reference, appropriately owned one of these mood-indicating Smeargle. The artistic expression and emotional visualization connection couldn't be more obvious unless they named him Art McPaintface with a beret. This emotional color changing transformed Smeargle from simple artist-themed Pokemon into living mood rings with thumbs and paint production. The Mewtwo Clone Collection. Mewtwo's cloning experiments created anime history's most distinctive variants, each marked with unique birthmarks identifying them as artificial creations. Pikachu 2 deserves extensive recognition among these artificially created Pokemon for distinctive appearance and significant narrative roles across multiple franchise movies. Created from Ash's Pikachu's genetic material through advanced cloning technology, this manufactured specimen had ear coloration remarkably similar to Pichu and ironically resembling the pre-evolution of its genetic source. Venusaur 2 stands among Mewtwo's most visually distinctive artificial creations, battling Corey's Venusaur, nicknamed Brute Root, and trainer creativity rivaling naming your dog Dog during Mewtwo Strikes Back climax. This replica had striking white birthmarks across its body, creating stark visual contrast against uniform green characterizing natural Venusaur specimens. Charizard 2 had distinctive crimson birthmarks, creating visual distinction between clone and original while maintaining fiery orange-red species palette. These vivid markings appear darker and more intense than natural Charizard coloration, seemingly appropriate for creatures designed for combat superiority rather than companionship. Blastoise 2 had distinctive coffee brown birthmarks, creating darker, more intimidating appearance than natural counterparts. These markings spread across its body, emphasizing already imposing physical presence, making it significantly more menacing while maintaining recognizable Blastoise characteristics. The original prototype experiments preceding Mewtwo's successful creation, Squirtle 2, Bulbasaur 2, and Charmander 2, deserve recognition as chronologically earliest artificially colored variants in anime's expanded timeline. These specimens had distinctive blue, dark taupe, and crimson birthmarks respectively, immediately identifying them as manufactured rather than natural beings. Unlike later stable specimens, these prototypes proved tragically unstable, gradually dissolving as artificially constructed bodies failed to maintain cellular cohesion over time. This suggests distinctive markings might have served as genetic instability warning indicators rather than mere cosmetic differences, essentially functioning as visible fundamental replication error symptoms. Color pattern consistency connecting doomed prototypes to later successful clones implies birthmark formation might represent unavoidable artificial cellular replication consequences rather than controllable design elements. This visual continuity creates tragic connections between failed experiments and successful successors, suggesting distinctive markings serve as permanent artificial origin reminders shared by all cloned specimens. The whole cloning situation raises crazy questions about nature versus nurture in Pokemon development. If cloned Pokemon fight identically to genetic sources, how much battle skill is hardwired versus learned? These are the philosophical puzzles keeping Pokemon geneticists awake at night, assuming they're not too busy running from ethics committees.